Hey everyone, today I am very excited to bring you a three-part series on how to create and give presentations. We all know presentations are a very important part of our careers and our work life. So, the tips that I'm going to give you in this three-part series will not only improve your credibility within your organization, but will also give you the much needed visibility with the leadership team. So, in this three-part series, we will take a look at how to build a credibility and how to be compelling when you give presentations. In the part two of the series, we will look into how to know your audience and plan your presentation, cater to your audience needs. And in part three, we will look at some of the common mistakes we all make when we give our presentations and how to avoid it. Right, let's jump into part one, how to be a compelling presenter and build credibility with your audience. If you Google compelling, you will see the meaning as evoking interest and admiration in a powerfully irresistible way. So that's exactly what we should be trying to do in every presentation we give in our organizations. So, how do we do that? Top six tips on how you can come across as a compelling presenter. Number one, be confident. I cannot stress the importance of how key it is to be a confident presenter. I've given a lot of presentations in my career, and I've also witnessed and I've been an audience of multiple presentations. Oftentimes, what I see is even if the content or the data being presented is average, it really is important on how you present it, how confident you are in presenting your data, and that makes all the difference. And at the end of the day, that is what the audience walk away with. Now, that's not to say, give an average presentation or give some semi research data. That's not what I'm saying. When you have the data that you have and you put in the time that you have put in collecting the data, that's great. But if you do not convey it with confidence, it doesn't make much sense. So be confident. And one of the tips that I can say in how to be confident, that's something that's helped me, is practice. You need to know your information inside out, and it also comes from preparation. The more you prepare, the confident you can be. So, tip number one, be confident in your presentation skills. Tip number two, deliver information that meet your audience needs. This is very important, and I've seen in so many cases how people miss the point. See, it's always good to know in the back of your mind that the presentation is not for you, it's for the audience. So, although in many cases we always tend to think it's our presentation, how are we going to do it? Are we going to be nervous? Well, if you put the attention on the audience, a lot of that nervousness and stress can totally be addressed. And it's always important to keep in mind, are you delivering the information that the audience has come to receive? Are you giving crisp information? Are they taking value out of your presentation? So always keep in mind and always try to cater to the needs of your audience. So deliver the information that the audience is looking for, not the information that you think that they need. Tip number three, be well prepared with your materials. Now, by material, I just don't mean the slides. I mean the research that you've done to put together the slides, the information that you have referenced for. You might have looked into a lot of documentations to even prepare one slide, right? So look into those documentations, look into all those research materials, and try to understand them. Don't just grab data and put it on the slide. The reason why I'm saying this is the more you know your material, and by material again, I mean additional information that is not already on your slide, the more you have chances to increase your credibility. Which means, just for example, if you're going to talk about something on your slide, say point A, point B, point C, and all of a sudden there is a question that comes up about point B, you should have the additional information from the preparation that you have done to address that question. And in many cases, it's not about just presenting the A, B, C bullets, it's about the reasoning that you give. It's about the information that is not on your slide, is what helps to build your credibility tremendously, because that also increases the audience's trust in you. They know that you're not just coming and giving them something on a slide. They know that you have been well prepared, and they also know that you have deep knowledge behind what you're presenting, which obviously converts into you know, trusting you and building the credibility. Tip number 4, eye contact. Yes, you know, we've all heard that. Try and give eye contact to the people in the room. You know, I've given a lot of presentations over the phone, over WebEx. It doesn't matter then. But if you go into a conference room, if you have the people in front of you, sitting in front of you while you're presenting, it is very, very important. It is key to have an eye contact with the folks. You have to make sure that the audience is following you. And also, by eye contact, I don't mean just keep looking and staring at folks or just pick one or two. Say if there were like 10 people in the room and you just pick one or two folks and you keep looking at them. No. By eye contact, I mean just scanning the room, making sure people are able to follow. You can find out from their expressions if they are lost or if they follow you, or if they have questions. So I would encourage for you to look at people when you present, not just turn and look at the board or look at the the PowerPoint slides itself, but always stand at an angle where you are addressing the audience, you're pretty much facing the audience. And also, if you have any questions, if you want to refer something on the slides, feel free to look back and refer to the slides, but also always make sure to come back and look at your audience and make sure that they're following you. Number 5, practice. Of course, practice is very, very important when you're presenting. No matter how good of a presenter you are, no matter how many times you have presented, no matter how many big stages you have presented or to a number of people you presented, it's always important to practice, especially for beginners, right? Because presentation is very different from our day-to-day conversations. Presentation is that we have to make sure that the audience understands what we are presenting and that they walk away with value. So it's very key to practice and practice multiple times. You know, there are several ways that I've practiced when I've given presentations. When I know that I'm going to be presenting in front of an audience in person, there have been times when I go into the conference rooms, the exact room that I know I'll be presenting, and actually stand in front of the conference room and give the presentation. The eye contact that I mentioned previously, I would just look around in the chairs, the empty chairs, but I will just look around and get the feel of the room. And it's also very important to make sure your computer works properly, your computer connection with the projector or any technical details that needs to be taken care of. Practice that. Do not think that you can just wing it on the day of the presentation by just going into the room maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes earlier. Make sure everything is in place. One other way I've practiced if it's going to be a presentation over the phone, is presenting and recording and hearing it back, right? So it's very important, and it's very interesting, the things that you will notice when you hear back your own presentation. You can really address the tone. You can adjust a few words that you want to use or you don't want to use. So I really highly recommend you to record your own presentation and replay it, so you can learn a lot of things coming out of it. And another tip in terms of presentation is also something that has helped me is in making sure my gestures are good if I'm going to be standing and presenting in front of an audience. I've practiced it in front of a mirror. Make sure your, you know, hand-eye coordination works. Make sure you're not fidgeting or turning around, and you're not like moving side to side. Make sure you're standing in a good professional way, that does not, uh, you know, that does not come across as awkward or anything like that. So, practicing in front of the mirror also is one of the best ways um, to practice your presentation prior to the presentation itself. Finally, tip number 6, allow time for questions and answers. See, a lot of time you know, we fill the presentation with decks and slides, and there's hardly any time for the audience to sort of go through the slides or sort of just absorb the information that you just gave them. And there's not much chance for them to ask you any questions that they might have for you. So in many cases, especially when it's a large presentation that you're giving to a large audience, um, people tend to not bring up their questions in the middle of the presentation. They want to wait. They want to let you finish. Sometimes people just jot down their questions, but it's up to the presenter, it's up to you to allocate that time. I would recommend, even when you're setting up an agenda, right, when you're going to talk about your agenda in the beginning of the presentation, give it at least 10 minutes for the audience. If it's a shorter presentation, give it at least the last 5 minutes and open it up for the questions and answers, right? And one of the ways to address the questions is, if you know the answer for the questions, great. And it's very key that the audience knows that they have that time to ask their questions. And in case there have been times when you don't know an answer, you don't have an immediate answer for them, just let them know that you will circle back to them, or you will have to contact someone else who might know the answer, and just let them know that you will get back, and make sure to get back. But the tip here is to allow time for the audience to ask their questions, so that you can also answer their questions, which, as I said, will improve in building your credibility. Now that we've seen how to be a compelling presenter, let's look at how we can build credibility. So, what is credibility? You can think of credibility as a brand that represents you as a speaker. And I just want to remind you that credibility works before the presentation, during the presentation, and after the presentation. And there are three key factors that influence credibility. Perceptions. Your goal as a presenter is to manage the perception of your audience by having ample amount of information, relevant information, and unbiased information. If you have reference materials and relevant documents and you refer to them in your presentation, audience is going to automatically able to build the trust and credibility that they have on you. Now, also, when you make your presentation, it's very important that you stay focused and use the right words. A lot of us use fillers such as like, so. Try to avoid all of that. And again, you can avoid that with your practice sessions. Avoid such fillers and try and use some strong words and strong sentences like, per my reference documentation, this is what I gather, or from my research, this is what I inferred, or as per this document, this is how I can convey this to you. Now, coming to actions. When you walk into the room for presentation, people notice you, right? From the outfit you're wearing, whether formal or informal, from the firmness of your handshake, from the stance, from your body language, from how you mingle with everyone else in the room, how do you talk to your fellow peers, your managers, your leads, leadership team. Everything will be noticed once you enter that room. So, managing your actions and managing your behavior and your body language goes a long way in improving and building your credibility. So that's a wrap for part one of this business presentation series, How to Be Compelling and Build Credibility. So we went over 6 tips for how to be a compelling presenter. Let's just do a quick recap. So, tip number one, speak with confidence. Tip number two, deliver the information that meets your audience needs. Tip number three, be well prepared with your slides and other additional information that you may need during the session. Tip number four, maintain eye contact with your audience. Tip number five, practice, practice, practice. And that's the only thing that makes your presentation perfect. And tip number six, do remember to allow time for a Q&A session at the end of the presentation session. So the audience will ask you questions and you're able to answer their questions. Now, as for building credibility, we looked at 3 factors that you will have to actively manage as a presenter. Number one, perceptions. Manage how the audience perceive you. Number two, your actions. And number three, your behaviors. I hope you found this video useful and that you're able to use these tips when you plan for your next business presentation. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. If you're interested in learning skills to have an excellent career, please consider subscribing to this channel. And in part two of the series, we will be looking at how to know your audience needs and how to plan your presentation to suit their needs. Thank you. See you in part two.